Long, long ago, on a chilly winter morning in the small village where I lived, I settled into a comfortable nook in the corner of the church sanctuary. I sat under a warm beam of sunlight streaming rainbow colors through the stained glass windows high above, illuminating the pages of my Bible. In the midst of my studies, the silence in the church was broken as the large front door creaked open and then gently shut. It was Sasha, a very poor farmer whom I had known for many years. His eyes met mine, and then he took off his hat, bowed his head, and approached me with soft, humble steps. "Good morning, Father Nicholas," he said. "Sasha, you are shivering. Please, sit here where it is warm," I said as I patted the bench beside me. "What has brought you to town?" "Father Nicholas," he said sadly, "you know my 3 beautiful daughters. They are old enough to marry, but I am too poor to provide them a dowry. Without dowries, no one will want to marry them, and without husbands, someday they may have to go out on the streets to beg." Sasha looked down, his eyes reflecting despair, and asked, "What can I do?" Sasha sighed as he considered the grim future facing his daughters. I put my arm over his shoulders to comfort him and said, "Too often we wait too long to ask for God's help, but it is never too late to ask. After all, He is a God of miracles. Let's pray and see what God will do for your daughters." After praying, I walked Sasha to the door. Large flakes of snow were beginning to fall as he began the long walk home to his small farm on the other side of the mountain. "Hurry home," I called after him. "It looks like another winter storm is upon us." As I watched Sasha leave, I thought to myself, how can I help his 3 daughters? I'm just a poor priest with few possessions of my own. I went to my room at the back of the church and knelt by my bed. I prayed and continued to pray through most of the day. That evening, a wisp of cool air, as though stirred by angels' wings, brushed against my cheek, and a still small voice within my heart spoke to me. "Many in your village are able to help." Instantly, I knew what needed to be done and who to talk to first. A winter storm had already laid a deep, glistening carpet of snow over the village, and the snowflakes were as large as butterflies swirling in a stiff, cold wind. I thought twice about going out in such weather, but then thought of the task ahead, and the spirit of encouragement overwhelmed me. I reached for my white fur hat and coat and began to feel that something wonderful was about to happen. I stepped out into the night and started toward a cottage at the edge of the forest, where the widow Busha had been living alone for many years. Candles and fireplaces caused windows to flicker with light in the cottages around the village. Most of the families had finished supper by now and were probably sitting around their fires telling stories and talking about their day's experiences. Everyone knew everyone here. We were all friends, but little did they know that soon we would all be family. Busha never had any children of her own, and everyone in the village thought of her as their great-grandmother. She was always available to cook for them when they were sick and to comfort them in times of trouble. Like Busha, many widows lived in our village, and over the years, they had collected treasures now tucked away on shelves or hidden in chests. Busha also had many beautiful things that she no longer used.
"Nicholas, what are you doing out on a night like this?"
she exclaimed as she opened the door. She grabbed my arm and pulled me into the warmth of her home. The oak wood burning brightly in the large fireplace warmed me, and Busha's kindness made me feel at home. I explained the plight of the poor farmer's daughters, then asked, "Busha, everyone knows of the bountiful dowry given by your father when you were married. Is there anything you can share with Sasha's daughters?" Her eyes widened in distress as her fingertips touched her lips.
"Oh, I can't!"
Busha exclaimed.
"These treasures are my memories. Look,"
she said as she pointed toward the mantel over the fireplace.
"That jeweled vase was my great-grandmother's."
She stood and started naming her prized possessions displayed around the room.
"My father made this footstool for my mother. My husband carved that lap tray the first year of our marriage. And here, this brass candlestick rested on the table next to our bedside all the years we were married.
The frail old widow, caught up in her memories, brushed away a tear. I stood and walked to her. "What will become of your treasures when you die?" I asked. "You have no family. These things may be sold or given to people you do not know. Surely you can spare just one of these memories for the sake of these young girls." Busha turned and went to a cabinet lined with many of her most cherished things. She took an ornate crystal glass from a group of 4 on the shelf.
"These were in my mother's dowry,"
she said.
"Sasha's daughters could never appreciate the memories that these glasses bring to me."
As she started putting the glass back on the shelf, it slipped from her hand and shattered at her feet. Neither of us moved. We stood for a long moment, staring at the crystal shards on the floor. I started to speak, but she put her finger to my lips.
"Nicholas,"
she said softly.
"I am a foolish old woman."
She carefully took the 3 remaining crystal glasses and some other items from the shelf and wrapped them in linen napkins and put them gently in a leather sack.
"Take these to Sasha's daughters,"
she said. "God bless you, Busha. The girls will treasure these gifts forever." Busha walked me to the door.
"Thank you, Nicholas. The gift of peace you gave me tonight is a much greater treasure than any crystal goblet could ever be."
Late into the night, I trudged through the blizzard, going from cottage to cottage, sharing the need of the 3 young maidens. After hearing what Busha had given from her dowry, everyone I called upon found something of value to give. My last stop was at Bradnov and Anna. They had been married 50 years, but, like Busha, they never had any children and wondered who they would leave their money to. They whispered to each other, and then Anna went to their bedroom and returned with a small sack.
"Here,"
she said.
"give them these gold coins. They will surely make their dowries complete."
It was past midnight when I started my trek. The snow, now knee-deep, continued to fall heavily. I was tired, but felt exhilarated by the generosity of everyone who gave. My bag overflowed with gifts for Sasha's 3 daughters. Gently hoisting the heavy bag onto my shoulder, I started my long journey up the valley to Sasha's farm on the other side of the mountain. It had stopped snowing, and the morning sun was just peeking over the horizon as I quietly laid the bag by their front door. The snow was dry and soft, like a pillow full of goose down, and it didn't make a sound as I crept away and headed back down the valley. I would like to have seen their faces when they opened the door that morning, but I didn't want to be the one to receive the gratitude for what so many others gave. A little while later, as I trudged slowly down the valley toward home, the mountains began to echo with shouts of glee and laughter. Apparently, Sasha's daughters were not disappointed with the bag of gifts found on their front porch. I sighed with delight at their joy, wishing that I could have watched from a distance to see the look on Sasha's face while he watched his daughters revel in all that they had been given. But I was very tired and had a long walk ahead of me. Later that day, as I dozed by the fire, I heard a commotion outside my door. Busha, in her oversized fur coat, and 2 men from the village were unloading her horse-drawn sleigh.
"Good day, Nicholas,"
she called cheerfully.
"Give us a hand."
She thrust a wooden chest into my arms and nudged me toward the door and said,
"I did not sleep at all last night, and it is your fault."
She chuckled. Inside, Busha knelt beside a large wooden chest and said,
"I spent the entire night thinking of all that I possessed and how much happier I would be if I could share what I have with others."
She took a beautiful doll in a blue velvet dress from a chest.
"My mother made this for me when I was a child. It has always been one of my favorite possessions, but dolls weren't made to be stored in boxes. Please find a little girl to love it as much as I have."
Busha spent the rest of the afternoon going through each chest and telling me the stories behind each of her valued items. She had now learned that her greatest joy would be in giving to others. Word of Busha's generosity spread quickly, and within a few days, people throughout the countryside began bringing their treasures and gifts to the church. My room was packed to the ceiling with everything from rocking horses to patchwork quilts. I sat bewildered in the middle of these gifts and wondered aloud, what am I going to do with all of this? Once again, that small voice within my heart spoke to me. Christmas is just 2 weeks away. Give these things to Jesus for his birthday." What could that mean? How could I possibly give all of this to him? Then the words of Jesus himself came to mind. "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do also unto me." Dorinda has a new baby. She could use this rocking chair. Brandon and Kara's 5 children have few clothes and no toys. Here are plenty of both. The elderly Rulofs will be grateful for this feather bed, and this cane will help their crippled mother, and she would love this shawl. I'll trade this jewelry for food and give it to those who have none in our village and the surrounding villages. Suddenly, I no longer felt like an old man. Overwhelmed with excitement, I scurried about, organizing all that had been given. So, on Christmas Eve, I borrowed Bush's horse and sleigh. I packed the gifts into empty grain sacks given to me by Sasha the farmer. Then, as the lights went out in the surrounding cottages, I loaded the sacks into the sleigh and set out to give birthday presents to Jesus. This is not the end. St. Nicholas and the people of this small village began a tradition of helping and giving to others in celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. He spent the rest of his life seeking out those in need and helping whoever he could. When his time on earth came to an end, the people of his village kept the spirit of St. Nicholas alive by continuing to celebrate Christmas by helping those in need. Through their unselfish acts, the love and light of Jesus Christ spread throughout the world. May the spirit of St. Nicholas live in you.